My name is Natalie Brooks, and the night everything changed for me began with the soft clink of champagne glasses around my parents' polished mahogany dining table. It was supposed to be a celebration, my brother Brandon turning 30, the unofficial passing of the torch in our family's real estate empire. Everyone was there, aunts, uncles, a few of Brandon's colleagues who laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. Phones were out, recording every moment for posterity. My parents stood at the head of the table, beaming like they'd just closed the deal of the century. My brother sat to their right, grinning wide, already the center of gravity in the room. My dad slid a thick leather folder across the table toward him. "Son," he said, voice thick with pride, "this is for you. Something worthy of the Brooks name." Inside were the deeds and keys to a waterfront mansion, 6 bedrooms, glass walls, infinity pool overlooking the lake, the kind of house that showed up in magazines. The table erupted in applause. Brandon lifted the keys like a trophy, and someone started a toast. To Brandon, my mom said, eyes shining, for carrying everything we've built forward. Then, almost as an afterthought, she turned to me, sitting quietly at the other end, and placed a thin manila envelope by my plate. "And for you, sweetheart," she said with a small smile, "we've got something a little more creative." I opened it. Inside was the deed to an empty parking lot off the highway, cracked asphalt, chain-link fence, the kind of forgotten slab where people dumped old tires or napped in their cars during lunch breaks. No house. No condo. Just a patch of busted concrete. Brandon burst out laughing first, loud and sharp. "At least you can sleep under the stars," he said, wiping his eyes. "Very on brand for your whole free spirit, figure it out vibe." My parents chuckled along. Someone snapped a photo, me holding the deed to nothing while Brandon waved his mansion keys in the background. The laughter rippled around the table like it was the funniest thing anyone had heard all year. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just traced the parcel number with my thumb and felt something inside me go very still. In that moment, I understood exactly how much they thought I was worth. And I decided, quietly, that I would turn that worthless gift into something they'd one day have to look up at. If you're watching this, thank you for sticking around. This isn't just a business story. It's the story of how the useless kid became the only one holding a lifeboat when the ship started sinking. Hit that like button if you've ever been counted out, and let's get into it. The next morning, I drove out to see my so-called inheritance alone. The GPS dropped me at a sun-baked rectangle of asphalt wedged between an overpass and a row of tired warehouses. Cracks spider-webbed across the pavement, weeds pushing through like stubborn green fingers. Beer bottles glinted in the gaps, and a rusted chain-link fence sagged in the breeze. Trucks roared by on the highway overhead, shaking the ground. I stood there for a long time, hands in my pockets, feeling the punchline land all over again. Then something shifted. My project manager brain, the one I'd honed for years managing renewable energy sites and helping an EV startup scout locations, kicked in. This lot was ugly, yes. But it was 5 minutes from a booming tech campus, surrounded by apartment towers full of young professionals who drove electric cars and fought over chargers in cramped garages. It sat right off a busy exit with high visibility. In a city going all in on green branding, this wasn't a joke. It was potential they couldn't see. I sat on the hood of my car and started sketching in my phone's notes app, rows of fast chargers, shaded solar canopies, a small container cafe, outdoor work pods with Wi-Fi. If people were going to wait 30 or 40 minutes to charge, why not make that time useful, calm, even pleasant? By sunset, I had a name, Vaultyard. A yard to recharge more than just batteries. Vision is free. Execution is not. I had some savings, but not nearly enough for commercial-grade chargers and solar infrastructure. Banks laughed me out of their offices. "Why not sell the lot and buy a condo?" one loan officer asked, like I hadn't spent my whole life being told to play it safe. I almost listened. Instead, I called my old boss from the EV startup, the one who'd always trusted me to deliver without drama. I laid everything out, the location, the demand, the fact that I had nothing to lose but the pride they'd already crushed. After a long pause, he said, "I've seen dumber ideas get millions. I can't give you millions, but I'll match your savings and make some calls." With his help, I scraped together a lean budget and qualified for city incentives that covered part of public charger installation costs. It wasn't glamorous. For months I was on site at dawn in steel-toed boots, arguing with contractors about cable depth, filing endless permits, buying cheap coffee for crews to keep them on schedule. Nights were spent at my kitchen table building a website, propped up on moving boxes because I'd sold half my furniture to free up cash. While Brandon posted sunset photos from his new balcony, I was hand-painting parking lines under streetlights, trying not to imagine how stupid I'd look if this failed. When the first 4 fast chargers went live, there was no ribbon cutting. I posted a few photos on Instagram, tagged EV groups, offered free charging the first week to anyone who'd come. For days, the chargers hummed mostly to themselves in the Texas heat. Then a local TikToker stopped by, filmed a quick video calling it the chillest charging spot in the city, panned across the scavenged lawn chairs and solar shade. Overnight, my phone started buzzing. People showed up, not just to charge, but to work, to drink iced coffee, to breathe under the panels. Within a month, every spot was busy during peak hours. Regulars timed meetings around charging sessions. A small delivery fleet signed a monthly plan for their electric vans. A city sustainability officer toured and called it exactly the kind of project their climate goals needed. I'd taken their joke and turned it into something alive, useful, mine. I should have known the silence from my family wouldn't last. One afternoon, a familiar white SUV rolled in slow and theatrical, the one my parents had gifted Brandon to match his mansion. My stomach tightened as it parked in front of the Container Cafe. My mom stepped out first in a linen dress, followed by my dad in golf attire, then Brandon, sunglasses on, scrolling his phone like he owned the place. My mom looked around, voice bright and brittle. "Well, would you look at this? Natalie, this is cute. You really turned that old lot into something." My dad nodded, already counting cars. "Decent traffic. Good visibility." Brandon finally looked up, scanning the glowing chargers, the line for coffee, the sign that read Vaultyard, charge. Work. Breathe. "Not bad for a passion project," he said. "How much are you pulling in on a good day?" I gave him calm, rounded numbers, enough to show this wasn't a hobby. My mom clapped softly. "See? This is what we always wanted for you, something creative of your own. And now that it's working, maybe it's time to bring it into the family fold." There it was. Brandon stepped closer, voice low like we were partners. "Look, Nat. I work commercial properties every day. You've built something impressive, but managing permits, utilities, finances, it's a lot. Bring Vaultyard under our company umbrella. I'll handle the money side, lineup expansion. You focus on the experience stuff you're good at. We split profits. Everyone wins." My dad added, "Our name adds credibility. Banks love our track record. You're doing great from nothing, but imagine with real backing." Brandon smiled. "I'm thinking we take 51%. You keep a nice share and a salary. We franchise it. You'll thank me." I looked past them, at the nurse catching up on emails between shifts, the college kid working on a laptop, the delivery driver stretching under the canopy. These people came because I'd solved a real problem, not because of the Brooks name. "No," I said. They blinked in unison. My mom laughed nervously. "No to what, sweetheart?" "No to bringing it under the family. No to giving Brandon control. You already divided things, he got the mansion, I got the cracked lot. This," I gestured around, "is what I built from that. It stays mine." Brandon's jaw tightened. "You're being emotional. One misstep and this place gets shut down. I'm trying to protect you." If you wanted to protect me, I said quietly, you'd have spoken up when they laughed at my gift. You raised your glass instead. They left without charging, without coffee, just climbed back into the SUV and drove away. I watched them go, knowing this wasn't over. They'd seen money. They weren't walking away quietly. Months later, Vaultyard was no longer an experiment. Every charger was busy daily. Fleet contracts were steady. I just signed with a regional delivery company when my phone lit up, Brandon calling. He never called unless there was an audience. He asked to meet. I agreed. He showed up at a small coffee shop near Vaultyard looking like he hadn't slept in weeks, wrinkled shirt, dark circles, no swagger. He wrapped both hands around his cup and got straight to it. I need your help. The market had turned. Rates spiked. Deals collapsed. He was overleveraged, condo projects stalled, short-term rentals empty, speculative land deals turned toxic. He'd refinanced the mansion twice. The bank was threatening foreclosure. He needed $150,000 to bridge a few months. He'd pay interest, sign anything, give me equity. I asked why me. He admitted my parents were tapped out, juggling their own fires. Vaultyard was the only steady cash flow in the family. I thought of that dinner, his toast, his laugh. I thought of nights I'd gone without to buy one more charger. Brandon, I said, do you remember telling me I needed you to take control before I screwed everything up? He flinched. That was before I saw how serious you were. If I give you this money, what changes? Do you suddenly see me differently, or do you just keep living like the rules don't apply? He insisted it was a loan, not charity. I told him no. I'd clawed stability from nothing. I wasn't risking it to delay consequences he'd earned. He stood up angry. You think you're better than us now because of some buzzing chargers? One complaint in the right ear and your little empire is dust. When that happens, don't pretend I didn't warn you. He stormed out. I sat there feeling the first cold wind of the storm he'd promised. Weeks later, my parents showed up, looking worn, defeated. The company was drowning. They needed $300,000 to stay afloat. They called it investing in my own inheritance. I reminded them how often they'd told me there was no extra for me, because Brandon needed it more to grow the company. They called me cruel, selfish. I told them I was responsible. Vaultyard was my only safety net. I wouldn't gamble it on the same choices that thought a parking lot was fair. They left angry. We'll remember this, my dad said. I almost smiled. That was the point, I'd stopped expecting rescue long ago. Then the rumors started. Customers asked if we were shutting down over electrical issues. Clients paused contracts over whispers of zoning changes. Then the official letter, multiple complaints about safety. Site inspection scheduled. Possible shutdown. I knew where it came from. I fought back with transparency, invited the inspector early, organized an open day with engineers and coffee, live-streamed everything. The inspector found 0 violations. But the complaints kept coming. A public hearing was called. Anonymous testimony from a concerned local real estate professional claimed inside knowledge of future development, called Vaultyard dangerous and temporary. At the hearing, city staff revealed most complaints, including the signed one, came from the domain hayesdevelopmentgroup.com. My family's company. Brandon stood at the mic and stumbled through excuses. The council chair shut it down. Vaultyard was compliant, an example of desired sustainable growth. Misleading complaints would be reviewed further. They walked out humiliated while whispers followed them. Fallout was swift. Clients left. Banks pulled lines. The ethics board reprimanded Brandon. And finally, the mansion went to foreclosure auction. I went. I watched strangers bid low. Then, through a holding company, I bought it. Not for revenge. For business. We transformed it into Vaultyard Retreat, a lakeside space for clean energy workshops, team offsites, quiet work. Bookings poured in. Weeks after opening, my family showed up in a modest car. They'd lost almost everything. They asked to rent the guest house, until they got back on their feet. I offered market rate rent or discounted if they worked, logistics, hospitality, community financing packages, on payroll, accountable. They accepted. Watching them check in for shifts in the house they once owned wasn't triumphant. It was quiet, heavy, fair. They'd gambled with stability for years. Now they felt what building for someone else was like. I kept boundaries. I was professional. I did not become their rescue. Some evenings, when the retreat is quiet and I can see the distant glow of Vaultyard's chargers, I think about that dinner table, the mansion deed, the thin envelope, the laughter. I could have spent my life chasing their approval. Instead, I built my own worth on ground they thought was worthless. The lesson isn't to cut family off the moment they hurt you. And it isn't to forgive and forget like nothing happened. It's that you're allowed to protect what you've built. You're allowed to say, if you want access to my life, treat me with basic respect. You don't have to fund bad decisions just because you share blood. You don't have to stay small so someone else can feel tall. I took what they tried to use to diminish me and made it the foundation of everything I am now. In the end, they didn't just lose a mansion. They had to knock on my door. And I opened it, but only on my terms. So I'll ask you, has someone in your family ever treated your worth like it was negotiable? Have you ever had to build your life from what they called nothing? If you were in my place now, watching them stand at your gate after everything, would you let them in, and if so, what would your terms be? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. Thank you for watching. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear they're worth more than the smallest envelope at the table. See you in the next one.